Hi, this is Rick Gualtieri, and this is another Tales of a Midlist Author. Today, I wanted to touch upon the concept of pseudonyms, which are also known as pen names. You're probably fairly familiar with this. This is where you write a book, and you sign it with a different name than your real one. A common question from new writers is, should I use a pen name if? I'm not really going to touch upon this here. Bottom line with that is, that's a very personal question. Only you can answer that. You need to think of your circumstances and decide if a pen name makes the most sense. There are all sorts of reasons to have pen names or use real names. It might be as simple as because I want to. No issues with that. Or it could be a little deeper. Maybe I teach first grade and I don't want the parents of my class to know that I'm the best-selling author of the Zara Queen of the Sex People series. All sorts of reasons. In my case, I write under my own name, Rick Gualtieri, and I also write under Cole Vance. And my reasoning is very simple. Under my name, I write urban fantasy and horror. Under Cole Vance, it's erotica and paranormal erotica. And the two, the two aren't that far off in that they're both like adult type books. In the urban fantasy, people's heads are getting exploded. In the paranormal erotica, people's heads are getting exploded, maybe in different ways. But what I don't necessarily want is the cross-contamination of somebody who reads one genre, says, hey, I like this guy's style, picks up the other book and says, what the heck, I was expecting like fireballs and and dragons and stuff, and instead there's just a bunch of naked people. That's my reasoning. You have to choose your own reasoning and whether it makes sense. So we're not really going to touch upon that, but it is something for you to think about. Now, one aspect of picking a pseudonym is, what is that pseudonym going to be? Now, how you pick it could be very simple. It could be, hey, my favorite comic book character and my favorite color. Or, any one of the different reasons. What you typically want to do, mind you, typically, is pick a name that's short and easy to remember. Say, for example, your real name is Aloysius Morgan Zimmerwitz. That might be something that's like a little difficult for people to remember, especially spell correctly. They go into Amazon, they type the crap out of it, they can't find your books. I know in my case, Rick Gualtieri. Gualtieri is not necessarily the easiest thing to spell for most people, much less pronounce. In fact, I've gotten a few folks who've emailed me saying, hey, thanks for doing this video series, because now I know how to pronounce your stupid last name. But the reason I go with my main name is, one, I did want the adulation. I wanted my family to be proud of me and know I've done this. Well, they're really not. They could care less. Oh well. But another reason is I have a fairly unique name. That's one of the downsides of a short pen name is, yes, you might want to write under Steve Black or Bob Smith. But if you go to Google, and you always want to do this before you pick a pen name, go to Google and search that name. Then go to Amazon and search that name. Because one, on Amazon, you don't necessarily want to pick the same name that another author is writing under. That's typically not considered cool. You can do changes, like, maybe there's a Steve Black, maybe you want to be Steve A. Black. That's typically considered fine, but you don't want to necessarily have the exact same name. The other is to look at Google and see how many pages of people there are with that name. If there's a lot and they've been out there longer than you, you're going to have a hard time rising in the search rankings. One thing you definitely don't want to do is you don't want to grab the name of a best-selling author, whether it's using their same name or using like a minor misspelling to fool people. Like, hey, I'm going to write under Jim Butcher and I'm going to spell Jim with 2 M's. If you're doing that purposely to get their traffic, it's a scummy thing to do. I guarantee they're going to be very protective of their brand. People are going to complain. Your books are going to get 1-starred, and there's a good chance you'll be removed from the bookstores, and rightfully so, because it's a scummy thing to do. So, not a route necessarily you want to go under, at least purposefully. Accidents happen all the time, though, with one established writer who's maybe not a big name and another, and that's why I'm saying do a search beforehand. Now, getting back to that SEO concept, that search engines. In my case, the good thing is, yes, there's a lot of people who misspell my name. There's a lot of people who can't pronounce my name. I have to put a lot of misspellings in my meta keywords for my website, but I own my brand online. do a search for Rick Gualtieri, and it's all my stuff that's coming up for at least the first like 4 pages or so on Google. You know, there aren't a lot of Rick Gualtieris out there. I don't think there's any other Rick Gualtieris who write, and there are definitely no others who write in urban fantasy. So I'm able to kind of own that name, which is good for me. Bad for other Rick Gualtieris out there. Sorry, guys. Sucks to be you. But that's a reason why you might either want to use a more difficult name, or if you're choosing a pen name, go with one that's not necessarily so easy. A good example would be Lemony Snicket. Off the top of my head, yeah, I could probably spell it. You know, I might get it wrong once or twice, but I guarantee if I do a search for him, there's not a whole lot of other people out there using that name. So, in your search for a pen name, take into account ease of use, ease of spelling, but also take into account how unique it is. These are all things that that you should be thinking about before you settle on whether you're going to be Bob Smith or whether you're going to be Dirk Nitro. One final aspect to touch upon, or at least that I want to touch upon right now, is whether to keep them separate or not. You're going to see a lot of cases. Apologies. See my other video about writing with distractions. But one thing that I do is I don't make it a secret that I'm Cole Vance. It's on my website. It's on my publisher website. When I tweet about Cole Vance, I do it for my own Twitter account. It's just a branding thing for me. I'm not trying to hide that. In other cases, you might want to keep them separate. You might want pen name A, which may or may not be your main author name, and pen name B to never touch upon each other, and which is fine. But one downside there, I'll caution you, is if you plan on doing a lot of social media with all your pen names, keep in mind that running a completely multiple different identities online is a bit of a pain in the ass. Multiple Twitter accounts, multiple email accounts. I mean, you can filter them all into the same place, but you still have to remember what you're doing. Very simple thing. I run a Facebook page for one of my characters for my series, and I have some friends help out with various other characters from the series. And once in a blue moon, one or more of us will post something there and forget to switch our name, so so it completely just ruins the the illusion there. And that's a really simple thing there. But think about having to switch actual personas all the time, especially if both your personas wind up being popular. That's something to take into consideration. Do you have the time to be multiple people online? Which in my case, I found it when I first started Cole Vance, I kept them separate. I had different emails, different Twitters, and yeah, it was a bit of work to the point where I was like, why am I doing this? I have no reason to. So those are my thoughts on choosing a pseudonym, the hows, whys, and things to take into consideration. There's others, like alphabetical order. Will a Zeke Zimmerman, show up in the search rankings after an Ace Batmaster or so. Those are other things to think about. But these are kind of just the basics to give you some food for thought when you decide whether or not you want to use a pen name, and then moving on, how you're going to choose it and how you're going to market it. So, some stuff to chew on. Anyway, this has been Rick Gualtieri, and this is another Tales from a Midlist Author. Hope to speak to you soon. Thanks.